Hello, everybody. This is Ryan with City Crafted, and in today's episode, we're going to be diving into episode 1 of a 3-part mini-series about St. Louis, its past, its present, and its future. And in this series, we're going to be talking about its architecture, the local vernacular used, as well as the city planning and land use that has been used in the city, what's presently used, and hopefully what will be used in the future. This is going to be kind of my, anecdotal version of what I would like to see for St. Louis, what I do see, and looking into the past and what we can learn from it. So yeah, with that, let's go ahead and jump into episode 1, the past of St. Louis. So St. Louis actually has a pretty rich history of its past and its founding. And this is reflected back through its architecture. So before it was a French colony, it was actually a Spanish colony. But it was eventually obtained by the French. And during this period, we see a lot of styles that were common in France during that time. Reflected back here in its own different kind of vernacular. So this is most notable in Lafayette. It's kind of always been the city's trendy neighborhood. And these buildings are just built in like beautiful Second Empire forms, kind of heavy decoration, these high kind of vertical windows, these decorated eaves, and wrought iron to kind of adorn everything. It's pretty typical, very decorated, Second Empire, Italianite, and a mixture of like Queen Anne as well. So a lot of different styles happening in this specific place, and it's all built in a sort of brick, which St. Louis, being located between the Mississippi and Missouri rivers, was a great place for clay, which was taken advantage of during the day. And because of this, we have all these different styles built in this unique clay brick that is local to the area. So because of this, St. Louis was able to kind of expand very rapidly and cheaply because there's no transport costs in any of the building materials, and labor is cheap back then. So you get a just very rich like selection of different types of like kind of colonial European style of buildings, and it honestly makes for a really interesting place to walk around, and definitely creates a unique sense of place and identity that is pretty like unique and hard to find in a lot of kind of more modern U.S. cities, I should say, because St. Louis has definitely modernized, which I'll get into now. So, with the advent of the automobile and everything, the city changed a lot, and, highways were built through the downtown of the city, so a lot of, like, these old neighborhoods were kind of disconnected and displaced. So you can kind of see this though. The modern buildings being built now, and by modern I don't mean like the style, I mean like contemporary as in current. So the current buildings being built, they try to match it, but you can tell that the materials are just a lot like less durable. Like as you can see, there's this development in Soulard. And here you have this big boxy kind of apartment block with a brick facade, but it just kind of overpowers the whole neighborhood and what's around it. And again, it's built on the edge, it borders the highway, and it sits next to like these other buildings, like there are these really impressive, again, older classical styled buildings right next to it, and it it tries to blend in, but it doesn't. And I guess what I'm saying is the sense of place that these places have and have built for themselves feel like they're almost being encroached on and eroded by what seems like kind of more modern, quickly built to house a lot of people, and it's more function over form. And I think it misses the mark a lot on that. It doesn't really fit in with the surroundings, and I understand maybe it would be more expensive to build. I know it houses more people. I know there's a housing crisis. You have to be pragmatic, but buildings like these undermine the whole. I don't want to say character, but the sense of place, the identity of these neighborhoods. So it's important to kind of keep that in mind as we go forward and continue to expand on St. Louis, infill, which will have to happen eventually, and preserve. And while I think it's important to not only preserve these places, but also preserve their sense of space, which I think is kind of often overlooked in the discussion of preservation, because buildings should not just exist on their own. They exist in conjunction with each other to create an environment. And we want environments that are pleasant to walk around and kind of human scaled. So, one place where I think this is the contrast is well defined is the old post office district in old downtown. So here we have the very classic revival style of the old post office. This was designed right after the Civil War, kind of like a fortress, and it was meant to kind of reunify the country as Missouri sat on those battle lines. So this whole area in the past was kind of popping. You know, after St. Louis's peak in the 20s, population declined, and I guess by the 50s, this post office kind of was still being used, but less. And it faced demolition threats in the 60s and 70s, again, the urban renewal era. But let's fast forward now, because the urban and renewal city that they wanted, it has now kind of matured, and we can kind of see the realities of it. So next to the old post office, we have a big luxury apartment tower. So the city kind of has a thing with just building luxury housing. Maybe it's the way they brand it, but they did. I don't know what was sitting there before, but it is as a pedestrian, a human walking around the streets. It's definitely very different. I'm not against towers, but in terms of, kind of preserving the space, I know the old Century building across the street was demolished in 2002 for parking for the post office. So, again, I'm just bringing up this point as in you shouldn't. Buildings need to exist with each other. If you isolate them, they don't. They have a harder time surviving. And the disconnect between this classic revival post office and that Second Empire French style is contrasted now with the modernist tower of luxury apartments. And I think it's great that there's housing in downtown, but again, it's all in how you kind of weave your fabric, the city fabric, together. And on a little side note, I wanted to mention the Ambassador building. So this was an old theater. It was like a movie theater and then a rock venue, like a concert venue afterwards for a little bit, but ultimately closed and sat vacant for about 30 years. And it was eventually destroyed in the late 90s because the next door bank acquired it and got the demolition to take it down. And I think it was so important for the city have protected this building and again preserving that sense of space all around it. Because was getting an empty urban plaza worth the price of losing it? So, yeah, just this kind of the point of this video. Just kind of looking at the urban fabric of St. Louis, what it was, what happened to it, and kind of where we're going in the future. So yeah, those were just a few examples of, old preserved St. Louis in that kind of French, Italianite, Second Empire brick style, next to the more modern kind of glass, concrete, steel look that's kind of going around the world right now. And how St. Louis has a very unique sense of place, unique sense of culture and identity, and how these modern developments kind of erode that a little bit. So that's what made me want to make these videos. So yeah, in the next episode, we're going to be touching on the present. We're going to be touching on some blight. We're going to be looking into urban planning a little bit. And I'm going to get some videos of me on the ground, me on the streets. So yeah, hope you're looking forward. I hope to see you there. And I'll see you in the next one. Peace out.